Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Dhena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha.
Chapter 18, verses from the Bhagavad-gita. In my book it's page number 80, but I think mine's different. Cetasa sarvakarmani mai sanyasya matparaha Puri Yogam upashritya matchitas satatam bhava. We'll read Sanskrit English. In all activities just depend upon me and work always under my protection. In such devotional service be fully conscious of me. Matchitas sarvadurgani matprasadat tarishyasi atachet tvam ahankaran nashokshasi vinakshasi. If you become conscious of me, you will pass over all the obstacles of conditioned life by my grace. If, however, you do not work in such consciousness, but act through false ego, not hearing me, you will be lost. Yadahankaram ashritya na yotsa iti manyase mityaisha vyavasayaste prakritistvam niyukshati. If you do not act according to and do not fight, then you will be falsely directed. By your nature, you will have to be engaged in warfare. Sabhavajena kaunteya nibhadasvena karmana chetnichasyan mohat karishyasya vishopitat. Under illusion, you are now declining to act according to my direction, but compelled by the work born of your own nature, you will act all the same, O son of Kunti. Ishvara sarvabhutanam hridesher arjuna tishtati pramayan sarvabhutani yantrarudhani mayaya. The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, O Arjuna, and is directing the wanderings of all living entities, who are seated as on a machine made of the material energy. Tameva sharanam gacha sarvabhavina bharata taprasadat param shantim stanam prapsyasi shashvatam. O Scion of Bharat, surrender unto him utterly. By his grace you will attain transcendental peace and the supreme and eternal abode. Iti te jnanamakyatam guyat guyataram maya vimrishaita dasheshena yatechasi tatakuru. Thus I have explained to you knowledge still more confidential. Deliberate on this fully, and do what you wish to do. Sarva guyatamam puya shrunume paramam vachaha ishtosi me dridam iti tatuvakshami te hitam. Because you are my very dear friend, I am speaking to you my supreme instruction, the most confidential knowledge of all. Hear this from me, for it is for your benefit. Manmana bhavamad bhakto vajaji mam namaskuru mami vaishyasi satyam te pratijane priyosi me. Always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, and offer your homage unto me. Thus you will come to me without fail. I promise you this because you are my very dear friend. Sarvadharman prityaja mamikam sharanam braja aham tam sarva papebhyo mokshaishami masuchaha. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. Idam te natapatskaya na bhaktaya kadachana na cha shushrave vachyam na chamam yobasuyati. This confidential knowledge may never be explained to those who are not austere or devoted or engaged in devotional service, nor to one who is envious of me. Ya idam paramam kuhyam mad bhakteshvabidasyati bhaktim mai param kritva mami vaishyat yasamshayaha. For one who explains this supreme secret to the devotees, pure devotional service is guaranteed, and at the end he will come back to me. Nachatasman manusheshu kashin me priyakritamaha bhavita nacha me tasmad anya priyataro bhuvi. There is no servant in this world more dear to me than he, nor will there ever be one more dear. Adyeshyate cha ya imam dharmyam sambadam avyayo jnana yagnena tenaham ishtasyam iti me matihi. And I declare that he who studies this sacred conversation of ours worships me by his intelligence. Shuddhavananasu yascha shrunuyad apiyo naraha sopi mukta shubhalokan prapnuyat punyakarmanam. And one who listens with faith and without envy becomes free from sinful reactions and attains to the auspicious planets where the pious dwell. Kachit etat shrutam parta tvayaikagrena chetasa kashchit agyana samoha pranashtashte dhananjaya. O son of Pritha, O conqueror of wealth, have you heard this with an attentive mind, and are your ignorance and illusion now dispelled? Arjuna vacha nashto moha smritir labda tvat prasadan mayachuta stitosmi gata sandeha karishye vachanam tava. Arjuna said, My dear Krishna, O infallible one, my illusion is now gone. I have regained my memory by your mercy. I am now firm and free from doubt, and I am prepared to act according to your instructions. Sanjaya vacha ityaham vasudevasya partasya cha mahatmanaha sambadam imam ashrausham adbhutam romaharshanam. Sanjaya said, Thus have I heard the conversation of the two great souls, Krishna and Arjuna, and so wonderful is that message that my hair is standing on end. Vyasa prasadat shrutavan etad guyam aham param yogam yogeshwarat krishnat sakshat katayata swayam. By the mercy of Vyas, I have heard these most confidential talks directly from the master of all mysticism, Krishna, who is speaking personally to Arjuna. Rajan samsmrita samsmritya sambadam imam adbhutam keshavarjuna yo punyam rishyami cha muhur muhuhu. O king, as I repeatedly recall this wondrous and holy dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna, I take pleasure being thrilled at every moment. Tacha samsmritya rupam atyadbhutam harehe vismayo me mahan rajan rishyami cha punah punaha. O king, as I remember the wonderful form of Lord Krishna, I am struck with wonder more and more, and I rejoice again and again. Yatra yogeshvara Krishno yatra parto danurdanaha tatra shir vijayo bhutir dhruva nitir matir mama. Wherever there is Krishna, the master of all mystics, and wherever there is Arjuna, the supreme archer, there will also certainly be opulence, victory, extraordinary power, and morality. That is my opinion. Om Tat Saditi Srimad Bhagavad-gita Supanishatsu Brahmavidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Sambade Moksha Sannyas Yoga Nama Ashtadasho Dhyayaha Hari Om. I've noticed that in walking around Govardhan Hill, there are many people that come there to do the Dandavat Parikram. Even some families, they tell their kids, we're going on vacation now. You can hop in the station wagon, and they take them off to the Govardhan Hill to do Dandavat Parikram. That means they fall flat, and they get up and fall flat again, and they go on for hours every day for weeks. But I have to say that I've never seen anybody unhappy. No one ever looks up and growls and says, oh, this is horrible. They all have a blissful look on their face. Sometimes they have a very determined look, but it's always blissful and happy. And I've also never seen anybody unhappy after chanting a chapter of Bhagavad-gita. It's a unique phenomenon because the words are directly from Krishna. And for that matter, every time we have a Gita Yajna where we chant the whole Bhagavad-gita, inevitably several people come up and say, can't we do this every day? Why not do it every day? And there's this sense of elation when one does some sacrifice for the Lord. Unfortunately, the mind is very tricky and wants to prevent me from taking part in such activities, thinking that it'll be outside my comfort zone. But it's quite the opposite. It's very uncomfortable to live within the mind, whereas to live within yajna, the direct process of performing devotional service, whether it's padasevanam, walking around Govardhan Hill, or whether it's shravanam kirtanam, as soon as one enters within the yajna, then there's some satisfaction. Similar phenomena occurs with Sankirtan, especially going out to teach Krishna consciousness to others by chanting Hare Krishna or distributing books. We've noted carefully that the hardest part of this process is just walking out the door, because the mind says, I would rather stay in today and suffer in my so-called comfort zone. But as soon as one crosses the threshold and walks out into the great unknown world, where one's going to work as an instrument for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, not knowing what's going to happen next, but just simply depending on the Lord, then one suddenly begins to feel a real sense of satisfaction. And we've seen again and again that those who didn't want to go out, including myself, didn't want to come back after entering into that region. So one of the ways of staying steady in devotional service is to stay close to yajna, to those who are accustomed to performing yajna, and be pulled along, even though the mind may be kicking and screaming. Stay in that zone of performing yajna one after another, and line them up so that your day is full of one activity after another, which is in the transcendental realm. And that can be done even in a practical way. I've noticed that when I set out the night before on my desk or wherever I'm staying, like the other night, I put out a stack of verses that I wanted to read, and then my beads were on top of it, and I tidied up my room before I went to sleep. And when I woke up in the morning, I was shocked. And I thought, who did that? And then I remember, oh, I did it. And I think, thank you, me, for being so nice and setting up this series of yajnas that I can now do. And I was inclined to do it, too, because of the niceness of myself the night before. And it seemed altogether available and compelling to go ahead and take hold of it and just enter within the yajna. So organizing one's life around this principle so that the yajna is always at hand and the next yajna is lined up is one of the ways in which to neglect the mind. And Haridas Thakur proved this when he was tempted by a prostitute. In other words, they had sent a prostitute to tempt him, and he used what is called in the major universities now, it's a new department called applied procrastination. Just like there's math and there's applied math, there's also procrastination and applied procrastination. And that means that when the temptation comes, you simply do what many of us are good at, and that is procrastinate. And say, sure, I'd like to help you out, but I can't right now. I'm busy because I have too many yajnas to finish. And if one stays busy, we read in the 10th canto, in the 13th chapter in a purport, Prabhupada said, when one becomes too busy to take care of oneself, then Krishna naturally takes care of the devotee. And he says as much in the Bhagavad-gita, Ananyas chintayanto mam yejana paripasate tesham nityabdiyuktanam yogakshemam bahamyaham. To those who have nothing else to think about all day except for serving me, then I will personally take care. And that means personally, with his own hands. He'll appear in the devotee's life and provide everything that's necessary for the devotee to go on living a normal, healthy life, because he or she doesn't have time to do it for him or herself. I'd like to read one purport from this chapter, because it'll be really nice to hear Prabhupada's voice right now. And I was thinking about reading from 1866. Anybody familiar? Yes? Yeah, I was in New Vrindavan a few years ago, and there was a devotee there that was playing a nice beat on the mridanga, so afterwards I said, I'd like to learn the beat, could I? And we sat down in the park, and he says, do you know anything about mridanga? And I said, well, I know Taraketa. And he goes, everybody says they know Taraketa. Nobody knows Taraketa. Taraketa is a very simple hand exercise, but he learned that from his teacher to chastise the student for saying that they know Taraketa, because it means that you should start with any study thinking, I don't know anything. I don't even know the basics. Similar to what we were discussing today about starting from the point of kinchana and not feeling any entitlement. So, if nobody objects, I'm going to read the verse 1866 with purport. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. Srila Prabhupada's purport. The Lord has described various kinds of knowledge and processes of religion, knowledge of the Supreme Brahman, knowledge of the Supersoul, knowledge of the different types of orders and statuses of social life, knowledge of the renounced order of life, knowledge of non-attachment, sense and mind control, meditation, etc. He has described in so many ways different types of religion. Now, in summarizing Bhagavad-gita, the Lord says that Arjuna should give up all the processes that have been explained to him. He should simply surrender to Krishna. That surrender will save him from all kinds of sinful reactions, for the Lord personally promises to protect him. In the 7th chapter, it was said that only one who has become free from all sinful reactions can take to the worship of Lord Krishna. Thus, one may think that unless he is free from all sinful reactions, he cannot take to the surrendering process. Thus, one may think that unless he is free from all sinful reactions, he cannot take to the surrendering process. To such doubts, it is here said that even if one is not free from all sinful reactions, simply by the process of surrendering to Sri Krishna, he is automatically freed. There is no need of strenuous effort to free oneself from sinful reactions. One should simply unhesitatingly accept Krishna as the supreme savior of all living entities. With faith and love, one should surrender unto him. The process of surrender to Krishna is described in the Hari Bhakti Vilas 11.676. Anukulyasya sankalpa pratikulyasya varjanam rakshishyatiti vishvaso guptritve varanam tata atma nishepakarpanye shadvida sharanagati. According to the devotional process, one should simply accept such religious principles that will lead ultimately to the devotional service of the Lord. One may perform a particular occupational duty according to his position in the social order, but if by executing his duty one does not come to the point of Krishna consciousness, all his activities are in vain. Anything that does not lead to the perfectional stage of Krishna consciousness should be avoided. One should be confident that in all circumstances Krishna will protect him from all difficulties. There is no need of thinking how one should keep the body and soul together. Krishna will see to that. One should always think himself helpless and should consider Krishna the only basis for his progress in life. As soon as one seriously engages himself in devotional service to the Lord in full Krishna consciousness, at once he becomes freed from all contamination of material nature. There are different processes of religion and purificatory processes by cultivation of knowledge, meditation in the mystic yoga system, etc. But one who surrenders under Krishna does not have to execute so many methods. That simple surrender under Krishna will save him from unnecessarily wasting time. One can thus make all progress at once and be freed from all sinful reactions. One should be attracted to the beautiful vision of Krishna. His name is Krishna because he is all attractive. One who becomes attracted by the beautiful, all-powerful, omnipotent vision of Krishna is fortunate. There are different kinds of transcendentalists. Some of them are attached to the impersonal Brahman vision. Some of them are attracted by the supersoul feature, etc. But one who is attracted to the personal feature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and, above all, one who is attracted by the Supreme Personality of Godhead as Krishna himself, is the most perfect transcendentalist. In other words, devotional service to Krishna in full consciousness is the most confidential part of knowledge. And this is the essence of the whole Bhagavad-gita. Karma yogis, empiric philosophers, mystics, and devotees, mystic yogis, are all called transcendentalists, but one who is a pure devotee is the best of all. The particular words used here, ma shuchaha, don't fear, don't hesitate, don't worry, are significant, are very significant. One may be perplexed as how one can give up all kinds of religious forms and simply surrender unto Krishna, but such worry is useless. And in a conversation in which Prabhupada is discussing some spiritual matters with an Indian gentleman on a walk, the Indian man begins to propose that there's a way in which one must have adhikari, or qualification, in order to surrender. And Prabhupada cuts him off midway through his thought and says, no, actually it's the prerogative of the soul at any time to surrender. And then he gave an example that if a very, very poor man who's destitute meets a rich man who brings a bag of money and says, here's the bag of money, take it. Then the poor man has two choices. First choice is, take it. Second choice is, don't take it. So number one, number two, number one, number two, number two, number two, number one. That's the choices. Take it or don't take it. So he said if he decides to take it, then he becomes a wealthy man. And in a similar way, Prabhupada talks in another conversation about how if a very well-to-do and organized person comes into the assembly and then says, I will take care of all your affairs. Anybody have any dealings they have to take care of back home or here? One person. Two people. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So there's a lot to deal with. It's very complex, the way in which one has to interact with the world, especially in the modern day. There's a lot of various aspects of life one has to cover. So if a person comes along, seems to be well-meaning and also seems to be equipped, and says, I'll take care of all your affairs. You just line up here and sign up and I'll take care of you. What would you think? You think, great. But then you might also think, what's the catch? Or you might also think, is this person really equipped to take care of all my affairs? And then Prabhupada comments, however, if Krishna comes along and he says, I'll take care of all your affairs, just sign up here, then you can be sure that he can take care of all your affairs, because Krishna is omnipotent and he's also omniscient. And as Burijan Prabhu once told me during Prasadam at Govardhan Hill, he said, I have two things to tell you that will change your life. And I said, please tell me as soon as possible. And he said, number one is Krishna is all-powerful. And number two, he's all-merciful. He said if he was all-powerful but not all-merciful, then we'd be in big trouble. And if he was all-merciful but not all-powerful, then what could he do? But he's all-merciful and all-powerful. And so he said one should then surrender to Krishna. So this makes a lot of sense. And as Krishna is directly speaking at the very end of the Bhagavad Gita that one may take this opportunity, and Prabhupada encourages that don't worry about it. There's a kind of a concern that people in general have about following dogma. In fact, you hear this, especially on the West Coast or maybe the East Coast, any place where people are highly educated and therefore sophisticated and they've lost their simplicity. There's a way in which people question organized religion or any statements of scriptures. I met a man in Santa Cruz on the street, and I was showing him Bhagavad Gita, and he said, I want the Bhagavad Gita, but I don't know all these commentaries. Right? You hear that too all the time. And people have these doubts about, taking it or not taking it. But now the thought just went out of my head. What was I about to say? Oh, dogma, yeah. And so people often use this word dogma. But if you look it up in the dictionary, dogma is not actually pejorative. It's not a bad thing. It simply means that human beings do not have the capacity to process all knowledge at once. And in any system of knowledge, one has to accept dogma because previous thinkers have worked things out and they've passed down systems, and there has to be an acceptance of axiomatic truth. Otherwise, you can't move an inch in any science. And in a similar way, when one takes to the process of Krishna consciousness, one can make a reasonable analysis of the philosophy, which is given, by the way, in the introduction to the Sri Upanishad, our epistemology, or how we know what we know, and why we should accept a particular chain of knowledge that's coming down to us, is reasonably explained. And one can have well-reasoned faith in taking this dogma of Krishna consciousness, already established system of knowledge. And as Sariputta Prabhu once said, he said, if you have the right dogma, then there's no problem. It's just if you have the wrong dogma, then you've got problems. So fortunately we have the right dogma because we have Krishna's Supreme Personality of Godhead. And it's all neat and clean because the Bhagavad Gita is directly spoken by him. It's been preserved over the many generations because it's been looked after by the great acharyas. You'll notice that other sections of the Mahabharata have been interpolated for various reasons. But the Bhagavad Gita itself has been perfectly preserved over the ages, and there's no question amongst all the acharyas that it's the direct words of Krishna. So one could then take a big gamble and just accept it, what Krishna says, and then engage in the process of surrender, and then one would have some major progress in life and would find oneself exhilarated at every moment from taking to the surrender process as mentioned here. And in the beginning, of course, one feels that it's very risky to surrender to Krishna. In fact, we meet people, especially from India, who get nervous about taking Bhagavatam into their house. And sometimes we've heard that people keep a deity of Krishna in their house, but they take away his flute. Because there's this idea that if he plays his flute, then we'll forget our material existence and we may drop everything. We won't be able to maintain our material desires very well. So let's take Krishna's flute away. And this seems, it indicates that people feel nervous about surrendering to Krishna because after all, what am I going to have to give up? But as one surrenders, we call it sweet surrender because one realizes that I have nothing to lose and all to gain. In the beginning, it seems as if I have everything to lose. I have everything to lose. What? Nothing to gain. Yeah, everything to lose and nothing to gain. But then, when one becomes accustomed to surrendering to Krishna by increments and see, the devotee then sees that I have nothing to risk and all to gain by surrendering. And then one can really invest oneself in the surrender process. What do you think? What is your opinion? Yes, Nagar Kirtan Prabhu, first with a hand to shoot up. Question's okay. It's going to be a tough one, though. I can feel it coming on now.
Haribol? Haribol? Okay. You were mentioning about Ananyas Chintayanto Mam, and that principle that if one is not able to devote time to taking care of themselves, that Krishna will automatically do that. But it seems that in modern times, especially in ISKCON, and there's definitely stories about devotees overexerting themselves and losing their health, and now there seems to be kind of a widespread caution mentality that don't overdo it, Prabhu. You got to do your yoga, you got to eat right, you got to get enough sleep and things like this. But how do we harmonize that with this idea that if you just fully devote yourself to Krishna, then you don't have to worry about any of these things?
Well, they're not mutually exclusive. If you're given a Sankirtan van and you're running into the ground, that's not necessarily transcendental if you don't change the oil, right? Taking care of mechanical things that are within our possession is altogether reasonable. So is sleeping enough, because if you don't get enough hours of sleep in the night, then you'll nod out when you're sitting in class while you're chanting japa and when you're driving the car. So Krishna then says in the yoga system you should be yukta. You should have some balance in your life and learn how to sleep enough and not sleep too much, not to sleep too little, etc. And Vaikuntha Nayaka Prabhu and family has arrived. Let's say Hari Bol.
Hari Bol.
Big news when Vaikuntha Nayaka shows up. Hare Krishna. Welcome to the Yatra. We're so happy you're all here. Great to see you. Yeah, so it's not mutually exclusive. Part of the process is taking care of the things that we have and being careful about one's diet and making sure that one exercises enough is allowed for in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Even kamasya nendriya pritir labo jiveti yavata jivasya tattva jignasya narto yashcheha karmabi. That one has a right to self-preservation. You have to preserve yourself for a higher purpose, and that is so that you're strong enough, you have balance enough so that you can inquire vigorously into the subject matter of the absolute truth. Does that help?
What was it? Just sort of utsahamai immaturity in the past that led devotees to push themselves to points where they were harming themselves, or was that? And why is that? We just grown out of that, I guess. Is that the idea?
Could be. I mean, people are different everywhere, and I don't know how everyone's conducting themselves these days. I do know that when people get older, they start realizing that you can't take the body for granted. When you're young, it could be a thing of youth. We're all young, and there's kind of a sense that whatever I do is fine because I'll just wake up tomorrow morning and keep going. And later on, you find out that it takes a little longer to recover.
I guess I'm just thinking that, one may say that, hey, you know what, I've been doing Sankirtan 11 hours a day, eating, once every 2 days, and just, dedicating all my time to serving Krishna, and I'm really suffering, I'm really not healthy. So it's not true that Krishna is saying that he'll take care of me if I completely dedicate to myself to his service. It's actually not true. I'm seeing practically that actually...
It's all hypothetical. Those who do, in a balanced way, apply the process of Krishna consciousness and invest themselves, do find that they are helped in various ways by Krishna. And, giving a scenario, why are you going out 11 hours a day every single day, even in January when there's no people on the street? Why not slow down in January and take a break until maybe March? And then you can have a measured way of doing your program. What other questions? Or, comments or reflections?
was appreciating this point that it's very uncomfortable to live within the mind, but extremely comfortable to live within yagya. And just resonating with the experience of any time the mind says, no, don't go out, or no, you should stay back, and maybe we should cancel the Harinam. But then you do it anyway. And then how I don't want to stop then. So just appreciating that point.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I liked your choice of commentary of Prabhupada on 1866, Sweet Surrender, and your elaboration in conjunction with the process of Sankirtan to prepare oneself by making all the practical arrangements to actually surrender moment to moment. And that means I surrender now by making the arrangements so I can surrender the next moment and tomorrow and onwards. So, thank you for that.
Is that a helpful continuation to answering Nagar Kirtans?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Because Sankirtan and this process of surrender or process of surrender is a sustainable practice. It is not something that will have negative effects on one's life.
Yeah, it's an interesting point also. I'm thinking that at some points not going out and taking care of oneself may constitute the kind of surrender. In other words, I want to keep going, but we take time to repair. As Krishna says, not too much recreation, not too little. You have to recreate yourself. And that also may be counted as... There's a verse from Prahlad Maharaj, Balasyanendriya Balasya neha sharanam pitara nushinga nartasya chagana mudhanvati majito now, where he's saying that parents can't save their children. A boat on water can't save a drowning man. Medicine can't help you unless the Lord sanctions it. But then Prabhupada says in the purport, you have to do your due diligence, but you should think that Krishna has to sanction it for it to work. Yes, 1, 2.
I just thought of a great example of one very exalted Vaishnavi in Denver, Mother Nidra, who she goes out every day and does books every day. She doesn't push herself past what she can do. She takes care of her health. But she's going out every day. And I've seen, because I submit the book scores to the BBT, and I noticed how some days she does more books than all the brahmacharis put together. And we have like 15 brahmacharis. And she's very mystical. Like last month she did 26 sets. And I'm just it's just really amazing because she's working. She's in a little bit of bad health right now, but she just has that determination to go out every day. And I was noticing how she does bigger than sometimes I might go out for so many hours, but can't even come close to what she's doing.
Yes, thanks for reminding us of Mother Nidra.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, we talk about balance a lot of times, balance in our activities, but there's only one balance in Krishna consciousness, and that's Krishna, right? And keep Krishna. And sometimes I'll hear, particularly from grihastas, that, well, how do I balance my material life with my spiritual life? And for that I have one answer, which is, you don't have a material life anymore, do you? You've come to Krishna. You're in Krishna consciousness. And everything you do is for Krishna. So if you're thinking that way, then you need to readjust your thinking. Regarding the comment about the 11 hours in Sankirtan and, the health and this, from what I understand, devotional service is blissfully performed. So if we're not blissful in our devotional service, it's not Krishna's fault. We have to take an internal review, an internal inventory, and see where we're maybe missing the mark. And your point was very good about taking advice from mentors, from senior devotees, because probably somebody with common sense. Krishna gives us intelligence, we're entitled to use it, we're supposed to use it. He also gives us common sense. We should use that too. So somebody's going out 11 hours a day, but they're not feeling fit, they're not feeling... Common sense, Or go to your mentor or your guru. And by guru, I don't mean just Diksha guru. You have your Siksha gurus and take some advice. Common sense. On 2 occasions, I had a situation where I happened to mention something to Prabhupada. He actually brought up. One was on a morning walk. So he asked me about chanting, meaning all the devotees, we were getting our rounds done. And this is quite early on. And I said, well, not all the time, but And then I kind of paused a moment and I said, I think we sleep too much. And then I thought, I can't say other people sleep too much, so I adjusted. I said, I think I sleep too much. And then he asked me how much I slept. And he didn't seem to think that was too much. And he gave me the recipe for sleeping, which was you should sleep until you're refreshed. So, the devotees were trying to pin him down, because usually we say, okay, 6 hours, and they were trying to pin him down. And he said, well, it may be 7 hours for someone, 5 hours for someone, 8 hours for someone. Sleep until you're refreshed. So again, some common sense was there. And as I was serving him in Jaipur, and it was a very, one of those good old-fashioned, really austere situations where we were all living in what we call dharmshalas, which basically was a room with a cement floor, and the bathroom was a room with a water spigot coming out, and then the toilet was a room with a hole in the ground and a bucket that you had to bring water from that other room. And it was in January, so it was really cold, and there weren't mats or anything, just straw on the ground. And being in Jaipur with Radha Govinda and Srila Prabhupada was such a uniquely wonderful experience. Every night, every day, and you just wanted to be there. But I found myself not wanting to get up. I found myself, it was, really a push. The cooking part, I was cooking for Srila Prabhupada, it meant doing the shopping, and I had a daughter and a husband who was serving Prabhupada also. So it was quite finding it somewhat difficult, but the main thing was getting up in the morning. And Prabhupada asked me one morning, are you all right? And I told him I was having difficulty getting up in the morning, and he just said 2 words, sleep more. Which would be the opposite of what we're thinking, all the time. So sometimes it's just common sense and using the intelligence which has been given to us by Krishna, and not use concessions to become the norm. But if you find yourself not blissfully performing your duty and you're tired and your health is being impaired, the adjustment has to be made. You can't blame it on Krishna, and you can't blame it on Krishna consciousness. You don't have to blame anything. You just have to adjust.
Thank you for that very
humble 2 cents.
Practical wisdom directly from Srila Prabhupada. And as you were speaking, I was realizing that oftentimes when I or someone else will make a statement about surrender and full engagement, as I made, that or even when we talk about surrender, which is a translation really of the concept of taking shelter of Krishna through stages and increments. There is the surrender process that Srila Prabhupada has mentioned here. When people think of surrender, they think of surrendering a passport and going to jail, or being chased on the freeway and then having to put one's hands on the pavement and things like that as surrender process. But it's according to one's capacity at every stage of life. And Keshav Bharti Maharaj wrote a very beautiful Vyasa Puja offering to Srila Prabhupada about 10 years ago. And in it he described how Prabhupada had surrendered in the different phases of his life. For instance, even when he was getting married, he had a different idea about who he should marry. There was an attractive one, and there was a not so attractive one. And his father said, no, this one. And Prabhupada said, okay, that one. He surrendered to his father. And then there were, he mentions the various phases of his life. We knew Prabhupada in the Paramahamsa stage of life, where of course he's always a liberated soul, but he's showing by example as an acharya, going through the various phases of life and showing how surrender is applied in those particular times. And so it means surrender has to be applied according to one's capacity at the particular time in life. And therefore there's a surrender process, which is mentioned here in 6 phases, which one can incrementally apply. And as one does that in a commonsensical way, one will find that Krishna is always there to support the devotee in unimaginable ways, because the person's attention is on serving Krishna, and Krishna reciprocates. That's the point I wanted to make. Malati?
Yeah, there was another part, small part, well, sleep more, but there was a little part that followed that. So a few days later, back in Mumbai, I was still having trouble getting up. I was offering Arti to Radha, to the deities, and I actually fell over doing the chamara. So it turned out I had jaundice. That's why I was, so sometimes if you're having a struggle in your service, you might want to also see that perhaps you're missing something health-wise. It could be the reason behind it.
Thank you. Yes, Shraddha.
So, Maharaj, you had talked in the morning about cooperating with Krishna. And then the part of Bhagavad-gita, the third part that we read today, the first few verses we heard Krishna talk about cooperating. And then the bar seems to have been raised a little higher by the time we reach verse 66, which says, surrender unto me. So can you elaborate a little bit more on, because it seems like it's a very thin line that divides cooperating with Krishna and surrendering to him.
Well, Prabhupada talks about cooperation as, in some places, as synonymous with devotional service, and it can also be considered in the same context as surrender, cooperation, because I'm an individual and Krishna's an individual. Nityo nityanam, chaitanas chaitananam. There's a way in which I have my own impetus, or I can develop my own impetus and go in any direction I wish. But if I make a determination that I'm going to cooperate with Krishna, this is the very essence of surrender. And to reiterate, it's a sweet process, because the more I'm cooperating with Krishna, the more I feel edified and satisfied. And the more I don't cooperate with Krishna, I create friction and difficulty in my life. In fact, the very meaning of the word duk is that one's out of alignment. Just like a spoke, an axle, if it's not aligned properly with the wheel, there'll be heat because of friction, and then there'll be a bumpy ride, and maybe even a fire will start. But as soon as one's axle is properly aligned, then it runs very smoothly. So cooperating with Krishna and surrender are the same. Yes, Prabhu? Oh, I thought you had your hand up. Okay. Well, we had another day here in the Dham, which is really fortunate, because it's rare enough to get a human life, And even as human beings, many people are obligated to wake up at 4 o'clock and get ready to go work in a gravel pit. But somehow or other, we've been given the opportunity to come to the Holy Dham and be together to hear and chant here. And it's inestimable how valuable that is. And I thought today was particularly sweet, sitting under the Siddha Bakul tree and talking about the process of chanting Hare Krishna as our main occupation in life and how to perfect it. And then the rip-roaring and outrageously beautiful Harinam Sankirtan that we had. When I looked back several times as I was around and about distributing books, I saw some of the local people jumping in. There was a man and woman who were just in ecstasy, flying around, chanting Hare Krishna. And the looks on the people's faces was so fascinating, because they're looking and they're trying to figure out what's going on here. Who are these people? Why are they chanting Hare Krishna here in Jagannath Puri and so forth? It was very satisfying, wasn't it? The whole day. And we had prasadam. Everything goes on seamlessly here. The prasadam served, the devotees serving prasadam wearing those blue shirts. It's like a very organized team. And they're so attentive the way they serve. It's actually a sublime way of life. You think about how most people live, and they have, I talk about ananyas chintayanto mam. I mean, I always think about what a blessed life we have as devotees. You have people who actually care about you, coming around and serving you the best of all kinds of food stuff that you could possibly get on the planet. And they really care for you, and they actually want you to have something nice. And we live like this all the time. We take it for granted, but people have to fend for themselves out in the world. It's a very difficult thing. But we have the best of everything, even in the ordinary ways in which we take care of ourselves. It's extremely fortunate life. So a special prayer to Haridas Thakur at the end of the day to please continue to inspire us in the pursuit of chanting the holy name with full attention and love. And thanks to Srila Prabhupada for giving us this opportunity to know where the Dham is, know what the Dham is, and to be able to take advantage of it. And to all the devotees for giving their lives, giving your lives to this process of Krishna consciousness and spreading it to so many people. How did we do on the book distribution today?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, yeah, it was very good actually compared to last year. We did a lot more in Lakshmi as well compared to last year.
We did more books and more Lakshmi than even last year.
Yeah.
That table was packed, wasn't it?
Yeah.
We kept looking over, and there was people lined up at the table trying to cut in, trying to get closer to the books. But how was it at the table anyway? I didn't get a chance to stand around there. People were asking questions, buying books. Was that what was going on?
Yeah, and I was again asking the devotees to be at the table, because 2-3 devotees were not enough. We had at least 5-6 devotees on the table. So, like, entire table there was no way to enter the table actually.
It was crammed. We could have had it even longer, right? And we were thinking, we could bring, like we have in California, we could make these signs and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. People might go crazy if they see that.
Maybe that.
And we saw Malati Prabhu she was going around like everywhere I'd look, she was there. People on motorcycles driving away with books. She was putting books in people's hands in every single direction, like she had 5 heads or something like that. Yes.
Actually, what I realized was the amount of time I was taking to open the packets of the books. That was the speed of Malati Mataji to give out the books.
Yeah, it was something to behold. And everywhere we looked, people were walking around with books. Even when we left the area, I saw people, filtering around, walking around with books in their hands. And it's very satisfying. They have a lollipop in their mouth, a book in their hand, and their Lakshmi's gone. And again this year, one of the beggars came up, and by this time we've talked about these things so many times, but a beggar came up. He was, he didn't have legs or something like that, and he kind of came up on his hands, it was like, and then we just gave him everything and said, okay, donate, and he goes, okay, no problem, I'll give. He understood what the program was, and it's just. It couldn't have been better. It's just so nice to be fully engaged all day long like this in the Holy Dham. So thanks to everybody. And we got back a little late, so we just had a little time tonight to hear and chant, but it's sufficient. And now we're going to have some announcements. Shraddha Devi Dasi is going to come up here and tell us what we won and which direction we're going to go next. Gaur Premanande Haribo. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo, Nitai Gaura Haribo, Bo, Haribo, Nitai Gaura Haribo. Nachari Marman, Nachari Marman. Nachari Marman, Nachari Marman, hey, Nachari Marman, Nachari Marman, Nachari Marman, Nachari Marman.